Welcome to the channel and welcome to my review / breakdown of Codex Drukhari or Codex Dark Eldar. This is the army book for Games of 40k 8th edition. It's a little bit late because Games Workshop sent it to me late. So there's plenty of other reviews on the internet already. So because of that, I'm not going to go into the full huge detail that I normally go into, but this one is a good book. So I still wanted to get some thoughts, some reactions, some stuff out there. So let's dive straight in. Essentially, this book is a book in 3 parts. There's 3 armies in here. There's the witch cults, there's the Cabalites, and then there's all the grotesques and the homunculuses and whatever they are. The Covens. They're called the Covens because the Drukhari, for those that don't know, are the part of the Eldar race that live in the Webway, and they were there before the fall of the Eldar. They've been there since after the fall of the Eldar. They live in the Dark City, and they come raiding out of the Webway into the material world. And so there's many different factions and sub-factions that live in Khormara, the Dark City, and the main factions are the Cabalites, the Witch Cults, and the Homunculus Covens. There's others in there as well, blades for hire such as Drukhari Beasts, Incubi, Mandrake, Scourges, and other things that aren't available in the Codex. So what does this book do? Well, as everyone knows, or if you're new to the game, perhaps you don't know, Drukhari benefit from something called Power from Pain. And as each battle round goes on, you get bonuses to the units in this book that have the Power from Pain rule. Most of the units in this book have the Power from Pain rule, except for vehicles. I think nearly everything has Power from Pain. There's a couple of other bits, a couple of tiny units that don't, such as Razorwing Flocks and Clawed Fiends, stuff that Beastmasters control, and a couple of other units that are in the court of the Archon, such as Urgulls and Sliths and things. They don't have Power from Pain. Vehicles don't have Power from Pain, but pretty much everything else does. Everything that you're going to take a lot of. Power from Pain works like this. In the first battle round, on every time you lose a wound, on a 6-up you don't lose a wound. Second battle round, Eager to Flay. You can re-roll the dice when determining how far a unit with this bonus moves when it advances or charges. 3, battle round 3, Flensing Fury. Add 1 to hit rolls made for units with this bonus in the fight phase. 4, Emboldened by Bloodshed, automatically pass morale, and 5+ is Mantle of Agony. Subtract 1 from leadership characteristics for enemy models that are within 6 inches of units with this bonus in the morale phase. So the main thing to take away from that is 1, 2, and 3 essentially, which is 1 is ignore wounds on a 6-up, you get that straight away, and 2, you can re-roll the dice when you advance and charge, and 3 + 1 to units when you fight. Those are the ones that come into effect a lot because you'll build your armies around them. Drukhari also have a shed load of poisoned weaponry, poison shots that they can use. Poison weaponry always wounds on a 4-up, regardless of the toughness characteristics. So if you're shooting something with a toughness characteristic of 3 or 2, it doesn't help very much. But if you're shooting stuff with a toughness characteristic of 6, 7, 8, it does help an awful lot. Always wounds on a 4-up. Vehicles it wounds on a 6-up. You also have combat drugs in here, and there's a couple of units that benefit from combat drugs. They're all witch cult units, such as Reavers. Those are the bikes, the blade bikes, Helions, and witches. And combat drugs work like this. Basically, before the battle, you can roll on the table below to see which combat drug the unit is using, or you can pick which combat drug the unit receives. But if you pick, you can't choose a bonus that has already been taken by another unit until all 6 combat drugs have been taken at once. So for example, if you have 2 units of Reaver jet bikes, you can pick one ability and another ability, but it can't be the same one. If you want to give them both the same ability, then you have to roll, and the combat drugs are +1 attack, or +1 strength, or +2 move, or +1 toughness, +1 weapon skill, +2 to leadership. They're all fairly pokey, and they're free. You just tag them onto witch cult units at the very beginning. So again, that affects how and what you take in your army. Typically, a general will pick a unit or 2, will pick a unit of Reavers and decide to give it this combat drug, and pick a unit of Witches and decide to give it this combat drug. It actually informs you which units you want to take. Those are the standard generic rules. Now, there's also another standard generic rule that if you bring a battle-forged army, then all troops units get objectives secured. All troops units will always score an objective regardless of the number of enemy models on that objective unless they have a similar ability. You also have another one called Raiding Force, which is if your battle-forged army includes at least 3 Drukhari patrol detachments, you receive +4 command points. If your army includes 6 or more Drukhari patrol detachments, you receive 8 command points. Why is this relevant? Well, typically if you take a patrol detachment, you can take 1, 2, 3 patrol detachments in, say, a Space Marine army, and you get 0 command points. The way you unlock command points typically is to take a battalion detachment, which is 2 HQ and 3 troops. A patrol detachment is 1 HQ, 1 troop. But you take a battalion, 2 HQ and 3 troops, you'll get 3 command points. If you take 3 patrol detachments, which is 3 HQ and 3 troops minimum, so an extra HQ, you'll get 4 command points. You'll get an extra command point. And why would you bother to do this? Well, the reason why you bother to do this is because there's lots of different Cabal obsessions and witch cult obsessions and homunculus covenant obsessions in here. There's lots of different ways that you can pimp your army out. These obsessions are the equivalent of chapter tactics or legion traits that you would see in other codexes. So you want to probably have, instead of getting a battalion detachment with 2 HQ and 3 troops and your 3 command points and giving everything in that detachment the 1 chapter tactic, or obsession, what you're probably going to do is take lots of small patrol detachments and give them all different obsessions so they can all benefit from different rules in different ways. Now, in order to benefit from these obsessions, everything in your detachment needs to be battle forged, and everything in a patrol detachment or a battalion detachment or indeed a brigade detachment, everything in that detachment either has to be either Cabal or witch or homunculus coven. You can't mix and match. Every other unit in the detachment has to be from the same Cabal, the same witch cult, or same homunculus coven, with the exception of Blades for Hire, Drukhari Beasts, Incubi, Mandrakes and Scourges. So you can mix and match them in amongst your detachment. But if you've got a battalion detachment and it's got some witches and some raiders and some witches and some Kabbalites in it, then you can't get your obsessions. So yeah, that's how it works. That's how it breaks down into lots of different armies, 3 different armies. So we're going to look at the Cabal Obsessions first. As a side note, before we go any further, this is a good book. There are 10 different obsessions in total. There are 4 pages of stratagems in this book. Normally there's 2, sometimes 3. 4 pages of stratagems in this book. The warlord traits, I can't really count how many there are. There's like, I don't know, 20 different warlord traits, because there's specifically warlord traits for every single obsession, plus generic warlord traits. It's a thick, thick book. Anyway, the Cabal Obsessions, these are the ones for Kabbalites. Kabbalites have Thirst for Power, the Kabbalah, the Black Heart. Units with this obsession that have Power from Pain ability treat the current battle round as being 1 higher than it actually is. And units that do not have the Power from Pain ability instead gain Inured to Suffering bonus. So right from turn 1, your Kabbalites are rerolling charges and advances, and they've already got their 6-up, ignore wounds. But Ravagers, Raiders and Venoms. So Raiders and Venoms are, Raiders are the transport that carry 10 guys, Venoms are the transport that carry 5 guys, and they can have different faction keywords. They have the Homunculus Coven or Cabal or Witch Cult keyword. So you can bring Raiders along if you have Witch Cults or Cabal. So you can bring Venoms along if you have Homunculus Covens or Witch Cults. You can mix and match these things in. Ravagers are only Cabal, Drukhari Cabal. Now, they don't have the Power from Pain ability, so they gain the Inured Suffering bonus from the Power from Pain chart. Basically, these vehicles will get a 6-up, ignore wounds if you take this obsession. The next obsession, Kabbalah the Flayed Skull, is Slave from the Skies. Add 3 to the move characteristics of all models with this obsession that can fly. So, for example, the Cabal ones that can fly are your Raiders, your Venoms and Ravagers. So suddenly you've got Raiders and Ravagers. Instead of going 14 inches when they're not injured, they're going 17 inches. You're plussing 3 to that. Venoms typically move 16, so plus 3 to that. Suddenly your Venoms are moving 19 inches. And in addition, Enemy units do not receive the benefit for their saving throws for being in cover against attacks made by units with this obsession that can fly, or that are embarked in transport that can fly. Reroll hit rolls of 1 for models when attacking with rapid fire weapons. So your flying stuff, your transport, your Ravagers, your Raiders and Venoms are going further. They're ignoring cover when they shoot, and guys inside them are rerolling hit rolls of 1 when attacking with rapid fire weapons. The Cabal, the Poisoned Tongue, the Serpent's Kiss, reroll wound rolls of 1 made for melee weapons and poisoned weapons used by models with this obsession. It doesn't apply to artifacts of cruelty. So, Cabalites, their standard gun shoots lots and lots and lots of poison shots. The Venoms and the Raiders shoot lots and lots of poison shots. Suddenly you're re-rolling wound rolls of 1 with all the shots that you're shooting out. So you're wounding on 4s with your rapid fire splinter rifles. That's what Cabalite warriors have, rapid fire splinter rifles. You're wounding on 4s, but you're also re-rolling wound rolls of 1 when you're shooting. But also your Venoms and your Ravagers, if you put them in a detachment and give them this Cabalite obsession, then they'll be re-rolling wound rolls as 1 as well. So wounding on 4s, re-rolling 1s. And Cabal of the Obsidian Rose, flawless workmanship. The range of all assault, rapid fire and heavy weapons used by units with this obsession are increased by 6. Doesn't apply to iBursts or artifacts of cruelty. So your rapid fire guns, so say you don't want to reroll wound rolls of 1, say you want to reach out and touch a bit further, then you're going to be using this one. So your rapid fire guns become 30 inches instead of 24 inches. Your blasters and your dark lancers are going to reach out and touch even further. I don't think most people will take this one because Drukhari have no problem with moving around across the battlefield. They are one of the fastest armies, if not the fastest army, with Venoms moving 16 inches and Raiders moving 14 inches. You really have no problem getting where you need to be. So increasing the range probably won't help. However, rerolling wound rolls of 1 probably will help. So the Cabalite detachments are your shooty detachments. These are the guys in Raiders and Venoms nipping around all over the place, throwing out lots of guns. Your HQ choice is an Archon, and your Archon rerolls hit rolls of 1 for friendly units that are within 6 inches of this model. That'll be hit rolls of 1 in the shooting and the fight phase, but typically you don't want Cabalites in the fight phase, you just want them shooting. Remember, if your Archon is embarked in a transport, this buff won't work because aura abilities don't work inside a transport. And remember, this buff will work on the Archon as well. So he's hitting on 2s with his ballistic skill and he's re-rolling 1s. His Shadow Field has a 2-up invulnerable save, which is nice. But the first time this invulnerable save is failed, the Shadow Field ceases to function for the remainder of the battle. However, if you have taken an Archon from the Cabala, the Flayed Skull, these are the guys that can add 3 inches to their move characteristics. Then you can also take a relic for the guy. Archon only, a relic. The first time the model fails its invulnerable save and its Shadow Field ceases to function, it immediately gains a 4-up invulnerable save for the remainder of the battle. So you lose your 2-up and then suddenly you get a 4-up. That's cool. There's a couple of funky new stratagems that you might want to use if you're playing with Cabal, but these will come in handy if you're playing with any of the units in here really. But the 2 that really stand out for 1 command point, Fire and Fade. Use the stratagem after a Drukhari unit from your army shoots in the shooting phase. The unit can immediately move 7 inches as if it was the movement phase. It can't charge in the same turn. But so imagine you've got a Ravager which is pointing at a tank. You blast away at that tank, and the Ravager is still in the open. Then you can move it 7 inches and hide it behind some cover. That's a pretty good one. So you can move, shoot, and move again for 1 command point. Or for 2 command points, Cruel Deception. Use a stratagem. If a Drukhari unit from your army falls back, that unit can still shoot and charge this turn. So all your vehicles can still fall back and shoot because they all have the fly keyword. But if you've got a big squad of 20 Cabalites that have managed to get themselves entangled in combat, say there's 15 of them left after that combat, and you want to pull them back and shoot, well, you can pull them back and shoot because you can spend 2 command points on the stratagem and move back and shoot. In my opinion, these are 2 of the best stratagems in the Drukhari book. we're going to see them used a lot, no matter what type of obsession, or whether you bring witches or Cabalites. You're going to see them a lot. They're good. But that's pretty much the surface of the Cabals. You only have one HQ choice, which is the Archon. Beforehand, he wasn't really doing anything, but now you're re-rolling hit rolls of 1. And blasters have gone from D3 wounds to D6 wounds, which is very nice because you can give your Archon a blaster. So yeah, blasters going from D3 to D6 is a big change. It makes the Drukhari even more effective, particularly as blasters are AP -4 and they're an assault weapon. They're mean. That's the Cabalites. These are the guys riding around in boats, chucking down loads of shots. You're re-rolling wound rolls of 1. You're re-rolling hit rolls of 1, so long as you're within range of an Archon, and they're all a bit cheaper. Venoms and Raiders and things like that. I'm not going to go for the points cost in this review because, as I say, the book's been out for a while, but as you can imagine, everything's taken a points deduction. Now, when we get onto the witches, the witch obsessions and the witch part of the army, things get a lot more interesting. The witch obsessions are Cult of Strife. Increase the attacks characteristic of models with this obsession by 1 during the turn in which they charged. 2. The Cult of the Cursed Blade. Increase the strength characteristics of models with this obsession by 1. In addition, when a unit with this obsession fails a morale test, only 1 model from that unit must flee. And Cult of the Red Grief. The speed to the kill of the kill. Units with this obsession can charge in the same turn in which they advanced. In addition, you can re-roll failed charge rolls for units with this obsession. Now that one stands out an awful lot. That one stands out like a pimple because Reavers move a very long way, Reaver jet bikes. So they're moving 18 inches as standard Reaver jet bikes. Then you can give them the combat drug Hypex, which adds 2 to their movement phase. So suddenly you've got Reaver jet bikes moving 20. And then when Reavers advance, this unit advances 8 inches for that movement phase instead of rolling a dice. So Reavers with Hypex are going 28 inches. And then with the Cult of the Red Grief, this witch obsession, after going 28 inches, they can charge in the same turn they advanced. And you can re-roll that charge. So I think we can definitely say first turn charge is a thing in 40k 8th edition. We first saw it with Gene Stealers, I think, zipping across the battlefield, boosted up there by the Swarm Lord. We've seen it with Blood Angels, with the Descent of Angels stratagem, where they roll 3d6 for their charge and they can go that far. We've seen it with Wraiths that can charge after advancing and their movement is crazy. And now we see it with jet bikes moving 28 inches and then charging and re-rolling to charge. Now, granted, Reavers aren't going to do very much when they get there because they're not very punchy. They are still strength 3. They only have 2 attacks. And for every 3 models in the unit, you can take a Heat Lance or Blaster. Or for every 3 models in the unit, you can take a Grav Talon. And Grav Talon, every time they do a charge, roll a d6 for each model with a Grav Talon. And on a 4-up, that unit suffers a mortal wound. So you can say you had a unit of 6 of these guys, 2 of them are Grav Talons. You're perhaps doing 1 mortal wound when you charge, and they're only strength 3 when they get in there. However, they use their Blade Veins, which are strength 4, AP -1. So Reavers are typically anti-infantry and quite soft infantry, but you will use them to charge tanks. You can use them to charge tanks that don't have the fly keyword, your Predators and things like that, and stop them from shooting. You charge a vehicle that doesn't have the fly keyword from 36 inches away, then that thing is not going to be shooting. It's going to have to fall back, and when it falls back, it's not shooting. And then you've stopped the tank from shooting, and then in your turn the Reavers can break away and with their blasters or heat lancers shoot at something else. The other thing you can do with your Reavers is Eviscerating Flyby, which is a 1-point stratagem. So use the stratagem when a Witch Cult, and Reavers are Witch Cult, unit from your army that can fly advances. So when you're zipping them 28 inches somewhere, or 26 inches if you don't take that combat drug. If that unit moves over an enemy in this phase, choose one of those enemy units and roll a d6 for each model in your unit, adding 1 to a result if the enemy unit you picked is infantry, and on a 6-up, the enemy unit you choose suffers a mortal wound. So again, say you've got a unit of 6 bikes that move 28 inches, 26 inches, they've gone over an enemy unit, you roll a dice, and on a 6 you're doing mortal wounds. For every, you're going to roll 6 dice because you've got 6 bikes. You roll a dice for every model that you have. But if it's an infantry unit, you're doing mortal wounds on a 5-up. That's quite nice. It's only a command point. Yes, it only does a couple of mortal wounds here, but this sort of cements the deal, tells you what Reavers are. They're an anti-infantry unit. You're going to be using them to zip around from right to left, doing a couple of mortal wounds on infantry units as they zip over them and slam into tanks to stop them from shooting, and maybe mopping up around the edges smaller minor infantry units here, there and everywhere. They're incredibly quick. They can use that fire and fade stratagem, that move, shoot, move stratagem for 1 command point as well. You can also think about Hellions as well, because Hellions are witch cult. These are the guys zipping around on skyboards all over the place. They hit a strength 4 with their Hellglaives, and they do 2 damage a time. Having an extra 2 inches of move with that combat drug, 16 inches, and being able to charge and re-roll the charge range is very useful for Hellions. But the more important thing that Hellions can do that Reavers can't is hit and run. This unit can fall back and charge in the same turn, so you can slam into a tank, and then in your turn fall back and slam into another tank or to another thing. Hellions are quite useful in that regard. So having Reavers and Hellions that can charge in the same turn when they advanced and re-rolling failed charges is definitely very pokey. But that's overlooking the other 2 Witch Cult Obsessions. So say you increase their strength characteristic by 1. So Hellions suddenly hitting on having strength 5 Hellions instead of strength 4 Hellions. That's interesting. Or say you increase the attacks characteristics of models with this obsession by 1. That's interesting. And remember, with the combat drugs, essentially you could do both. You could give 1 the drug that increases their strength by +1, and 1 the obsession that gets their attacks up by +1. And then do it the other way around. Give 1 an attacks that gets the drug that gets the attacks up by +1, and then 1 with the obsession that gets their strength up by +1. You could do both. And that's particularly good when you think about witches. So witches are the troop's choice for witch cults, obviously. They come with 2 attacks, but +1 because of the Hecatari blade that they have. Each time the bearer fights, they can make 1 additional attack with this weapon. So witches have 3 attacks as standard. And you can give them Cult of Strife, and they have 4 attacks as standard. And then give them the combat drug that gives them +1 strength, so suddenly they got 4 attacks at strength 4. But you could do both. You could give them the drug that gives them a strength 4, and then give them the obsession that gets them up to strength 5. So a chunk of witches hitting with 3 attacks at strength 5. Very interesting. They have a 6-up invulnerable save, which is a 4-up invulnerable save to shooting. They hit on 3s. Put a succubus with them, which is the HQ version for witches, and they're re-rolling hit rolls of 1. And remember that when the powerful pain chart kicks in turn 3, you add 1 to hit rolls made for units with this bonus in the fight phase. And this is where this book begins to stack up. This is where the combinations begin to come together. This is why this is a thick, complicated, many-layered book. So essentially, if you're doing it right, you don't really want your witches in close combat until turn 3. And in turn 3, your witches will be hitting on 2s instead of hitting on 3s. They should have a succubus with them, so they're hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. And they're going to be hitting with, say, 3 attacks at strength 5 or 4 attacks at strength 4 in turn 3. It's crazy good. They got a 4-up invulnerable save, and they can prevent people falling back out of close combat. So they'll be a good tar pit unit. Keep your succubus cheap with an agonizer and an archaic glaive. That's 54 points. Shove her up the front. And if you're using the Cult of the Cursed Blade, give a Traitor's Embrace relic, which is when roll a d6 when your succubus is slain in the fight phase, and on a 2-up, the unit that killed the succubus suffers d6 mortal wounds after it's finished making all of its attacks. Nasty little sting in the tail, I like it. So we didn't see witches very much before, but now I think we're going to see a boatload of them because they've got extra strength, they've got extra attacks, The succubus always did what she did. We didn't see very many Reavers or Helions, but the fact that they can charge after they've moved such an incredibly long way, and the shoot, move, shoot ability is in there. There's some layers to this army now. It's very interesting. Probably worth mentioning that witch cults have more than one HQ as well as succubus. You can bring Lilith Hexbricks. So we're on to homunculus covens. Now their HQ, quite naturally, is homunculus, but you can bring Urian Rakarth as well, who's a named homunculus, and their troops are Raks. Now Raks have a 5-up invulnerable save, and then Grotesques, being the elite version, they have a 5-up invulnerable save, and then you have Talos, and they have a 5-up invulnerable save, insensible to pain. However, looking at the homunculus coven obsessions, the very first one, prophets of flesh, connoisseurs of pain. If a model has this obsession, the invulnerable save conferred by its insensible to pain ability is increased to 4+. So, boom, you take your Raks, your Grotesques, and your Talos, and they've got a 4-up invulnerable save. So Raks are 9 points each, toughness 4, sit them at the back of the battlefield on an objective that you want to hold on to, and you've got a unit of troops way back there, not doing anyone any bother, and if they get targeted, they've got a 4-up invulnerable save. More than that, if they get shot, the Prophets of the Flesh have their own unique stratagem. It costs 2 command points, but use this stratagem at the end of your movement phase. Pick a Prophets of the Flesh or Raks from your army, remove it from the battlefield, then set it up again at its full starting strength, wholly within 6 inches of the edge of the battlefield and more than 9 inches away from enemy models. So you've got a 4-up invulnerable save Raks unit, which if it does get decimated for 2 command points, you can just pick it up and put it down somewhere else again. Now let's not underestimate the power of Grotesques as well. Grotesques, you never saw them, but now we're looking at a toughness 5, 4 wound unit. Toughness 5 and 4 wounds, and I think they're about 35 points each, with a 4-up invulnerable save, moving 7 inches and charging towards you. And they've got monstrous cleavers and flesh gauntlets. So instead of 4 attacks, because it's using its monstrous cleaver, it gets 5 attacks. At strength user, -2 AP, 1 damage each. So strength 5, toughness 5, 4 wounds, 5 attacks, 4-up invulnerable save, charging across the battlefield with a 4-up. Yeah, I mentioned the 4-up invulnerable save, but they also have power from pain as well, remember, so they're ignoring wounds on a 6-up. For only 30+ points each. That's quite pokey. They're like the Terminators, but with more attacks. Terminators in the Imperium book. And then you've got Talos and Kronos with a 4-up invulnerable save now, because you're going to be bringing Prophets of the Flesh along with you. And there's a stratagem. I forget how many points it is. 1 minute. 1 point. It's just 1 point. And it'll heal a Grotesque or a monster, which is within 3 inches of a homunculus. And you'll regain D3 lost wounds. So if your Talos is looking a bit weak and homunculus is nearby, D3 lost wounds, straight back onto that monster or Grotesque. The other 2 obsessions for homunculus covens are the Dark Creed, Distillers of Fear. Models in enemy units must subtract 1 from their leadership characteristic for each unit with this obsession that is within 6 inches of theirs, to a maximum of -3. So, if you have multiple units of homunculus covens next to enemy units, it's going to be -1, -2, -3 to their leadership, so long as they're within 6 inches, to a maximum of -3. And then when you shoot them with lots and lots of bullets, it's highly likely that morale will be a thing, and a lot more models will run away. And then Coven of the 12, Butchers of the Flesh, homunculus coven obsession is improve the armor penetration characteristic of all melee weapons used by this model with an obsession by 1. For example, AP 0 becomes AP -1, AP -1 becomes AP -2, etc. Now those other ones are very nice and narrative and fluffy, but the one that you're going to be using is Prophets of the Flesh. You're going to be getting your invulnerable save up to a 4-up because it's free and it's there, and I like the idea of a Hellblazer army on a battlefield. Imagine an army just made up of Raks and Talos and Grotesques, and everything in it is toughness 4 or toughness 5, or in the case of Talos, I think they're toughness 6 or toughness 7, and everything in it has got a 4-up invulnerable save. Also in this army, You can bring Raiders and Venoms because they have the keyword, faction keyword, Homunculus Coven as well. So you can bring along some Raiders and some Venoms as well to throw down some much needed dagger and to add some much needed speed. And let's not forget that Raiders and Venoms have Knight Shields, so they have 5-up invulnerable saves. So you're looking at an army of gunboats with 5-up invulnerable saves, everything on foot having a 4-up invulnerable save. So Dark Eldar armies were famous for being the glass cannon. They were, or glass hammer, or glass something or other. They'd hit you like a freight train. And if you didn't die, if you managed to outmaneuver them or be very canny or hold a lot of stuff in reserve, which you can't do anymore because of 8th edition, it's harder and harder to hold things in reserve. They used to hit you really hard and utterly destroy you in turn 2, turn 3. If they didn't, if you were able to outplay them, and you could hit them back, then you would table them. So I've got a friend called Paul who plays Cabala the Last Hatred. He's appeared on the channel a bunch of times. And the number of times he's been tabled, he'd go to a tournament back in 5th edition when we did a lot of tournaments, he would either table opponents or get tabled himself. And that was how Dark Eldar played. Yet if you bring an entire army with a Homunculus Coven with a 4-up invulnerable save, it kind of flips the narrative, doesn't it? Suddenly you've got a whole army that isn't made of glass. It's going to save 50% of all the shots. It obviously won't do anything to mortal wounds, but it's going to save 50% of all the shots smashing into it. Talos engines and Kronos engines, 50% of the shots smashing into it. Grotesques at toughness 5 with 4 wounds, 50% of the shots smashing into it. And then you can load up your Ravagers and Venoms as well for some much needed speed and poison shots, and able to throw down some firepower with those things. You won't be able to bring any flyers if you just wanted to go for a pure homunculus detachment, because Razorwing jet fighters and Void Raven bombers are Cabal and Witch Cult, but you could just bring a flyer wing and make them Cabal or make them Witch Cult. And it doesn't stop there for homunculus covens either. If you want them even tougher, keep them close to your homunculus, because they have the Master of a Pain ability. So any homunculus coven units that are within 6 inches of a homunculus get +1 to their toughness. So your racks go up to toughness 5, your grotesque go up to toughness 6, Talos and Kronos pain engines go up to toughness 7. So suddenly you've got an army which is tough, resilient, relatively slow moving for Dark Eldar, but quick moving compared to everything else. I mean, even the heavy choices, a Talos pain engine moves 8 inches. They're not slow by normal army standards. They're just slow compared to a Dark Eldar army. And all of these things will be ignoring wounds on a 6-up because of the power from pain ability. So there's a tough army in here, the homunculus army. There's a very quick assaulty army here with the Helions and the Reaver jet bikes. They're not doing much damage when they get there, but at least they're very, very quick. The idea is to swamp your opponent and shut down their shooting. And then there's an incredibly shooty army in here with the Cabalites. In Reavers and, in Raiders and in Venoms, zipping around all over the place, throwing down a lot of dagger. There's 3 distinct armies that play in 3 different ways. You could field all of one type of army if you wanted to, or you could mix and match in between the 3 types as much as you want to. Then for added flavour, you could add beasts or incubi, mandrakes and scourges. So Scourges are winged Dark Eldar. They're dropping down from the sky. You'd see them in 7th edition and earlier, these things dropping down from the sky, jump infantry that can move 14 a very, very long way. They have the wing strike ability, so you can hold them in deep strike and drop them down, and give them blasters. I think a unit of 5 of these with 4 blasters in there is 127 or 125 points. And remember, blasters have now gone from D3 weapons to from D3 damage to D6 damage. So imagine you're an Imperial tank commander minding your own business, and suddenly this 120 point unit drops next to your 300 point tank and fires 4 strength 8 -4 AP D6 damage shots. Is going to go, every single one of those shots is going to go straight through your armor and do D6 damage a time. Now, Scourges are made out of paper, but the ability to land anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from an enemy and thump 4 strength 8 minus 4 AP d6 damage shots into a vehicle from 18 inches away is incredible. And you can still use that 1 point stratagem fire and fade after shooting with your glass hammer. This is a true glass hammer. Then you could jump back behind a ruin or a large line sight block and train piece so they can't get picked on. Ready to move 14 inches in the next turn and do it again to another unit. It's nice. Dropping them down, zapping a vehicle, jumping back so they can't get shot. Next turn, moving them 14 inches, zapping another vehicle, and at that point they'll be out in the open and probably dead. But killing 2 vehicles for a 125 or 127 point unit is, yeah, it's nice. I like it. That's Scourges. Now, Beastmasters and Beasts are complicated. Beastmaster is a guy on a skyboard zipping around all over the place, and he's got some Clawed Fiends, some Chimeras, or some Razorwing Flocks with him as well. Razorwing Flocks are rather popular because they have the fly keyword and move 12 inches, but Clawed Fiends themselves move 10 inches, and their strength user minus 1 AP, 2 damage each. Now, it doesn't sound great, but strength user is strength 5 with 5 attacks. They only hit on 4s though, but they do reroll hit rolls of 1 while they're within 6 inches of a Beastmaster. So Beast Pack zipping around all over the place is a thing. And then you have Incubis. Incubi and Drazar, the Master of Blades. They're the only thing in the Codex with a 3-up save. The toughness 3 with a 3-up save, but at least they have a 3-up save. You can chuck them in a Venom, chuck them in a Raider, have them jumping out and hitting people with their Clavexes. They get power from pain, so they ignore damage on a 6-up. But Clavexes are quite pokey. I mean, strength 4, minus 3 AP, and each of them has 3 attacks. And you add 2 to the damage characteristics of a close combat weapon made by a Clavex if the wound roll of the attack is 6 or more. Incubi have a nice punch. They also have a stratagem as well, Onslaught. It only costs a command point, and use the stratagem before an Incubi unit from your army fights in the fight phase, and until the end of the phase, each time you roll an unmodified hit roll of 6 for that model, that attack scores 2 hits instead of 1. Remember, they're chucking down 3 attacks each, so if you've jumped 10 of these guys out of a Raider, so disembark 3, then you're moving 7, because they do move a long way. That's a 10-inch move after they've jumped out of a Raider. Then they're charging. They're going to be slamming in with 30 plus attacks. How many unmodified hit rolls of a 6 are you going to get? Well, for every 1, you get 2 hits instead of 1. And they're strength 4, minus 3 AP, 1 damage each. And you add 2 to the damage characteristics made by Clavex if the wound roll of the attack is a 6-up. They can do a boatload of damage so long as you bring chunks of these guys. They're a nice little bit of spice on top of the Dark Eldar mix, I think. Mandrakes are another blade for hire. They've never been good. They're still not very good. You can deploy them off the battle grid and set them up on the battlefield anywhere that's more than 9 inches away from an enemy unit if you want to. They have Shrouded from Sight, so it's -1 to hit them. That's shooting and in close combat. But they are toughness 3 with a 7+ save. So, but they have got a 5-up and vulnerable save, I guess. So Mandrakes, yeah, they're there. They're typically distraction units or a way to drop something in the backfield, or the way to drop something on an objective in later game turns. Vehicles in the books: Ravagers, Raiders, Venoms. They all have a 5-up and vulnerable save. The Flyers, the Razorwing Jet Fighter, and the Void Raven Bomber also have 5-up and vulnerable saves. The Night Shields. The Razorwing Jet Fighter, I think, is the fastest unit in the whole of 40k. At 10 plus wounds, it moves 20 to 72 inches. It can move 72 inches. For some reason, these Dark Eldar flyers aren't as maneuverable as Eldar flyers, because Eldar flyers you can pivot 90 degrees, then move them, then pivot them 90 degrees again. And Razorwings and Void Ravens don't have those abilities. They just pivot and turn. I guess they can't pivot again because they're moving so very quickly across the battle grid. I've always thought the Void Raven Bomber is quite interesting. It's 155 points with 2 Void Lancers, and I probably wouldn't switch them out because Void Lancers are basically lance weaponry but strength 9. So it's strength 9, -4 AP, d6 damage a time, 2 shots. It's an assault weapon as well, so it's moving a long way, firing them, hitting on 3s. That's nice. And use it as a dedicated anti-tank weapon. You can take Void Raven missiles, and they're only 10 points, so it gets your Void Raven up to 165 points. But it's a toughness 6, 12 wound model with a 5-up and vulnerable save, and it can drop its Void Mine. Its Void Mine is very interesting. Once per battle, a Void Raven bomber can drop a Void Mine on an enemy unit it moves over it in one of its movement phases. Pick one enemy unit that it flew over, then roll 3d6 for each vehicle or monster in the unit, or 1d6 for every other model in the unit up to a maximum of 10d6. So up to a maximum of 10d6. If you move over 10 infantry models, you'll roll 10d6. And on a 3-up, the unit being bombed suffers a mortal wound. On a 3-up. That's quite punchy. So for 165 points, you've got to do that once per battle, plus you've got strength 9 melter weaponry, essentially, the Void Lances, plus you've got these missiles. I think and it moves a incredibly long way. I think Void Raven bombers are very interesting. I haven't touched on Talos. Let's talk about Talos Pain Engine, for example. So it's toughness 6, but with the homunculus nearby, it's toughness 7. It's got 7 wounds, and it's going to have a 4-up and vulnerable save because you're going to give it that homunculus coven obsession. So having something with 7 wounds and a 4-up and vulnerable save is juicy. It's got 5 attacks, but it's going to fight with its macro scalpels, and every time you fight with a macro scalpel, you get an extra attack. So 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, at strength 7, minus 2 AP, 2 damage each. That's just chewing through Terminators or chewing through Primaris Space Marines. 2 damage each is also the magic number when you want to affect things and hurt things that have disgustingly resilient, for example, when you're trying to chew through Plague Marines or Nurgle Demons, because yes, they can pass them on a 5-up disgustingly resilient, but when you're having to chuck 2 down for every single model that you've got, it's harder to pass 2 disgustingly resilient saves than it is 1. And 6 attacks at strength 7, minus 2, 2 damage, juicy. And for 1 command point, you can put D3 wounds back on these things if there's a homunculus nearby. Why would you not bring 5 of them? I mean, there are 103 points with 2 splinter cannons and 2 macro scalpels, and they're essentially your dreadnoughts. They'll do what dreadnoughts do, but I have a 4-up and vulnerable save as well, for just north of 100 points. I like them. They come in units of 1 to 3, and using that cruel deception stratagem, you can fall back, shoot and charge. So you can get into close combat, get messy, and then spend 2 command points and fall out of that combat and charge back into another combat. Yeah, Talos are good. So let's just mention a couple of stratagems that we haven't mentioned so far. One of them is Screaming Jets. So use this stratagem during deployment. If you have not used a webway portal stratagem, you can set up a Drukhari vehicle in your army that can fly in the sky instead of placing it on the battlefield, and it can descend at the end of any of your movement phases more than 9 inches away from enemy models. So these are the Flyers or the Venoms or the Raiders or the Ravagers. And if you use this stratagem on a transport, then all units embarked in it remain embarked in it while it's set up in the sky. 1 command point. And remember, you're using this stratagem during deployment, not during a game turn. So in matched play, you can spend this stratagem more than once. You can keep 2 or 3 units up in the sky. There's also the webway portal. It's a way to keep infantry, bikers or beasts off the table. And then you can drop in these guys more than 9 inches away from an enemy unit. So with Screaming Jets and webway portals, it's a way of reserving some of your army, keeping it off the board in turn 1 and dropping them in turn 2 or turn 3 when the power from pain thing kicks in. Say at the start of the game, you've just got some homunculus covens there on the table, or some shooter units on the table like Ravagers. So homunculus covens for extra toughness, or shooter units to throw down some Daka, and then in turn 2 or turn 3 you bring these things in. Or alternatively, just keep them up in the sky and then drop them in and then charge and reroll the charge range because you're a witch, maybe. You could do that. I like Pray They Don't Take You Alive. If your warlord kills the enemy warlord in the fight phase, for the remainder of the battle, every model in the enemy army subtracts its leadership by 1. So yeah, if your Archon or whoever he is, or Leth, kills the enemy warlord, -1 to your opponent's leadership for the remainder of the battle. That one's really good. Crucible of Maledictions also really interesting. Use a stratagem in your psychic phase, which is interesting because Drukhari don't typically have, well, they don't have any psychic phase, well, they don't have any spells, but you still have the phase. So in your psychic phase, pick a homunculus from your army and roll a d6 for each psyker within 12 inches on it. And on a 4 up, the unit being rolled for suffers d3 mortal wounds. You can only use this stratagem once per battle. But that one would really nerf Grey Knights or Eldar or Thousand Suns, a psyker heavy army. Suddenly your homunculus goes boom and this bubble goes out 12 inches from him, 24 inches all the way around. But 12 inches from him and on a 4 up doing d3 mortal wounds to all the psychers around him. That one's quite nice. But the truly game-changing stratagem you've probably heard from other websites is Agents Infect. Cabal of the Black Heart stratagem. So it costs 3 command points and you use this stratagem just after your opponent has spent command points to use a stratagem, and you roll a dice, and on a 1 it has no effect. So you spent 3 command points, you roll a dice, and 1, nothing happens. But on a 2 to 5 it cancels your opponent's stratagem. They just don't use it. And on a 6 your opponent spends the command points and it cancels it. I think it's game changing because there are some armies out there and some lists out there that rely on their stratagems. People have built lists around using this stratagem in this turn. Tide of Traitors, for example. And then for 3 command points, you can just stop them using it. That one is brutal. It is game changing. Right, Warlord traits. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's 16 of them. There's 3 for Cabals, 3 for Witch Cults, 3 for Homunculus, and 1 for all of the listed named Cabals and Witch Cults and Homunculus covens that have been mentioned earlier. So there's 16 Warlord traits, which is a lot. So rather than go through all of them, I just should tell you the 2 that you're going to see all the time. The first one you can see all the time is Cabala, the Black Heart, Labyrinthian, Cunning. Whilst your Warlord is live, roll d6 each time you or your opponent spends a command point to use a stratagem. You gain 1 command point for each roll of a 6. So yeah, that's your command point farm. Every time you or your opponent uses a command point on a 6 up, you get 1. Prophets of the Flesh is good as well. This Prophets of the Flesh Homunculus Coven, remember, these are the guys that give you all your Homunculus units a 4 up invulnerable save. Well, you roll d3 before the battle begins, and you gain an additional number of command points equal to the result. So for homunculus armies, we're going to see that one as well. Right, I'm not going to go through the points because it's probably been leaked all over the internet already. Needless to say, there are some nice points reductions in here, some hefty points reductions in here. So if you're a Drukhari player, you're going to be pleased. Okay, I'm going to finish up here. I wanted to get a review out there to give you my impression of this book. There are many more informed opinions out there in the internet land that and I'm sure there's going to be many comments in the sections, people telling you things that I overlooked, so I would have a good scroll down through the comment section. There'll be many Dark Eldar warriors that want to post stuff, but I wanted to get my view out there because in my humble opinion this is a good book, and it's a good book for 2 main reasons. And the first and most important reason for me whenever a codex comes out is choice, is the amount of choice and variety this book gives you with the obsessions and with the different combinations, and with 4 pages of stratagems. It gives you lots of different choices and lots of different ways of building a viable Dark Eldar army. And the second reason why it's a good book, the second thing that everyone looks out for, is power level. I think the power level of the Dark Eldar has gone up by quite a chunk. Just even some very subtle changes like blasters going from D3 to D6 will make a profound difference. The Witches suddenly coming back, Reaver jet bikes being able to charge from 30 inches away. These are strong changes that you didn't see in a Dark Eldar army, which you are going to see now. So I want to close up. I want to thank Games Workshop for sending me through this book eventually. And thank you for listening. Happy wargaming.